Both President Trump and Vladimir very shortly later on joint base out for pictured sickness with himself in terms of event not having anticipated that expectations was strong for quite some time. Details on his expectation of what's coming in today when he was on Air Force One shortly after the Army Washington DC said he was hoping to go not be absent. If that didn't happen today, he was also said he was ready to start. By his own standard, by that, that's the progress that was made, and exactly what we wait to see. Simply a lot of questions. We're going to have awful eyes focused on this. And they should capture At that time, Donald Trump, in effect, sided with Vladimir Putin as it relates to Russian interference in the 2016 election over the assessment of the U.S. The Logan City president was much more critical of Putin's saying, and in fact, trust Vladimir Putin not continue with this invasion if his region. The bottom line is we do anticipate much further initially expecting both President Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Y'all good on my end.
You're fine. You're out there. So you can see the angle. You're fine where you
You know, Tom, it's a good question. I think that's what all of us are waiting to see the answer to. We can say that the answer we've seen already today was not only historic, they were also striking in terms of the eyes of the president. Starting to see
Nice and here. Finish?
At that time, so what they speak about I think is the anticipation through the Donald Trump route dating back to the time of businessman watched it play out every time. A bit earlier today, and almost at that time, the staircases from their aircraft. They walked down that red carpet, shaking hands and Russian for about 15 minutes, and a total 50 seconds. Donald Trump happy. Smiles and you just walked up on top of that platform where they were framed by the jets, warplanes surrounded by helicopters flying overhead ultimately before they entered the presidential housing. So a lot of this choreography is after Donald Trump is president. The one thing we don't know is what happens with Donald Trump behind the
Okay. I just want to warn you that because I'm lying back by the camera instead of at my seat, if we get a 2-1, I'm going to have to sit down. I'm not going to be able to record the 2-minute delay. Does that make sense? Yes. And so we're not running my package, is that what you're saying? Okay, perfect. Okay, cool. That's okay. No, that's not what they're saying. They just told me. Okay, so you come to me. You come to me like right off the top of the hospital. You give it to like go sit down.
Ну, прямо сейчас.
This is perfect. We get a 2-minute one. So I don't just give us. I understand. Like they're not rushing themselves. They don't. So there's like
Техническая сторона вопроса уже готова. Типа Дмитрий появляется в зале конференции, появляется все это. Это представитель президента. И кроме того, глава российского правительства. Прямо сейчас, видите, уже на него набросились, но потому что...
Nobody's going live right now.
Me on his cell phone, I can hear it through
Let's see, you want to see that over?
Yeah, we're aware.
Mike. Off. You got to put the switch. Switch.
this reporter's not ready to take action.
Cell phones barely hanging in there.
Well, that's part of the problem. That is also all the live use. But also, Secret Service can take a long anytime. They can visit us.
They were going to give us hard lines. They told us they were going to huh? They like
I need a flip phone. None of these three are. It's like running a train station blind.
I already read all of it.
Clover. It's a 3G, 4G phone.
Oh, yeah?
It'll work better. You don't have the adapter?
Can't break it now.
Oh,
I'm Bluetoothing into my thing, but thanks.
no worries. I usually do a USB-C hardwire.
Does that work on USB-C?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
So do the new cell phones.
Yeah. I do have that cable. I just in the middle of it now.
Yeah, it's fine. The flip phones are a little, they're older, but they don't take as much bandwidth.
Where you plugged in? Where's your line you plugged into?
What's that?
Right here. Yeah.
No.
Watch your back, mister. Sir.
It's a losing fight. Robert, over here. Mark, how do you Bluetooth into the mixer? Adapter 3? Yeah, yeah.
I love
They're very good. It's
You have a couple.
these are down lose a lot as well.
Yeah, there are members of both delegations who are sitting in the first Secretary of State, they are not doing well. The expanded bilateral meeting, what was supposed to take place over lunch, was some of the top advisors, economic protection. The Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Best, Alan Parker, the Secretary of Commerce, the Secretary of State, were among those who attended this meeting. We don't know whether there was some form of appreciated expanded bilateral, which is kind of interpreters for arriving in time to pull back the curtain a little bit. This has been a remarkable day the White House. I have not seen something like that here today as the American immigration Richardson that information swept the allowed to log in and weapons of that kind of process that you normally see so meticulous. Let us be waiting on buses to enter breakfast boxes so those individuals who would be inside here just to check in. So there's not any stuff on
Although it seems
contingent of White House on a daily basis, there are dozens of others as well, but they're also all across the world, all of the Congress.
yes, I can hear you.
But potential and nine also relates to this.
How is my signal? Okay, great.
It's a good question. We don't know the answer to that. I can tell you that by the president, we're trying to get his attention. President Trump as he likes.
Yes, I am back. I'm still in the spot.
Also taking the last that will take place. So there's just so many topics. This 40 plus months, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands stop his assault on Ukraine right now and Ukraine has given sovereign
About 15 minutes ago, the Americans and Russians ushered in a conference on either side of the aisle. Americans and Russians separated empty podiums ahead of us with pursuing the peace written in letters above the two lefters. The senior staff of both the Russians and the Americans have filtered in to sitting in the front rows, awaiting some sort of notification that the press might begin. There's a sense of surprise here because I think we were waiting to hear that the 3-on-3 meetings initially there would be a larger lunch for the staff and representatives here, and that didn't happen. I decided that this would be a fair one, decided to come out and do this press conference now. So read into that way as well.
Next to
That's happening in our world. You see a switch over here? Yeah, Do you know what Wi-Fi there used to be under this light maybe? They took our water. Oh, that's right. They took all the clean water.
The thing that Donald Trump has first and foremost said is that some sort of during the
right in front of them.
you
The rocket
they're not going to address
Okay. That's
I don't see it. Common for feature. West? Oh, west. Somewhere near it. Right? Somewhere near it.
I saw his face as he was walking around. And kept an expression on his body.
At 5, go straight back that way. So somewhere in that section. By that roost and then I get it. You're on the army going I can't. None of us are skinny enough to crawl under this. You barely done the one. That's where the blue cable goes to.
Sorry, repeat that. Oh, that wasn't me talking.
That's not pretty well. Is that photonic? Photonics? Yeah.
Okay, off then.
Mario said it's buried over there somewhere. I mean, all Gumby, but not that far.
Rachel dropped.
Possibly come up to another wireless as well. I mean, we can definitely add him to that other thing.
Yeah, the other Wi-Fi is totally dead. Isn't working.
Hey, New York, how's this audio now? How's this audio with Kelly now? I need to go closer to her. Just to have it confirmed. I need back in there, sir. Hold position.
So that cable didn't look long enough.
I think it's over. Let's see, exit. Oh, the exit just came in. Caroline Lutnick. She may have to give up on this. Let's see you live.
Russian objectives to make it bigger than just Ukraine get out some of the business people, economic without progress on the ceasefire. I think American allies
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States of America and the President of the Russian Federation.
Уважаемый господин президент,
Mr. President,
дамы и господа,
ladies and gentlemen,
наши переговоры
our negotiations have been held in a constructive atmosphere of mutual respect. We had very thorough negotiations that were quite useful. I would like to thank once again my American counterpart for the proposal to travel out here to Alaska. It only makes sense that we've met here because our countries, though separated by the oceans, are close neighbors. So when we've met, when I came out of the plane and I've said, "Good afternoon, dear neighbor, very good to see you, in good health and to see you alive." I think that is very neighborly. And I think that's some kind words that we can say to each other. We're separated by the Strait of Bering, though there are two islands only between the Russian island and the U.S. island. They're only 4 kilometers apart. We're close neighbors, and it's a fact. It's also important that Alaska has to do with our common heritage, common history between Russia and the U.S., and many positive events have to do with that territory. Still, there is tremendous cultural heritage back from the Russian America. For example, Orthodox churches and a lot of more than 700 geographical names of Russian origin. During the Second World War, it was here in Alaska that was the origin of the legendary air bridge for the supply of military aircraft and other equipment under the Lend-Lease program. It was a dangerous and treacherous route over the vast emptiness of ice. However, the pilots of both countries did everything to bring closer the victory. They risked their lives and they gave it all for the common victory. I was just in the city of Magadan in Russia, and there is a memorial there dedicated to the Russian and the U.S. pilots. And there are 2 flags, the U.S. flag and the Russian flag. And I know that here as well there is such a memorial. There is a military burial place several kilometers away from here. The Soviet pilots that buried there who died during that dangerous mission. We're thankful to the citizens and the government of the U.S. for carefully taking care of their memory. I think that's very worthy and noble. We'll always remember other historical examples when our countries defeated common enemies together in the spirit of battle camaraderie and allyship that supported each other and facilitated each other. I'm sure that this heritage will help us rebuild and foster mutually beneficial and equal ties at this new stage, even during the hardest conditions. It is known that there have been no summits between Russia and the U.S. for 4 years, and that's a long time. This time was very hard for bilateral relations, and let's be frank, they've fallen to the lowest point since the Cold War. I think that's not benefiting our countries and the world as a whole. It is apparent that sooner or later, we have to amend the situation to move on from the confrontation to dialogue. And in this case, a personal meeting between the heads of state has been long overdue. Naturally, under the condition of serious and painstaking work, and this work has been done in general. Me and President Trump have very good direct contact. We've spoken multiple times. We spoke frankly on the phone. And special envoy of the President, Mr. Woodruff, traveled out to Russia several times. Our advisors and heads of foreign ministries kept in touch all the time. And you know fully well that one of the central issues was the situation around Ukraine. We see the strive of the administration and President Trump personally to help facilitate the resolution of the Ukrainian conflict. And his strive to get to the crux of the matter, to understand its history, is precious. As I've said, the situation in Ukraine has to do with fundamental threats to our security. Moreover, we've always considered the Ukrainian nation, and I've said it multiple times, a brotherly nation. However strange it may sound in these conditions, we have the same roots, and everything that's happening is a tragedy for us, a terrible wound. Therefore, the country is sincerely interested in putting an end to it. At the same time, we're convinced that in order to make the settlement lasting and long-term, we need to eliminate all the primary roots, the primary causes of that conflict, and we've said it multiple times, to consider all legitimate concerns of Russia and to reinstate a just balance of security in Europe and in the world on the whole. And I agree with President Trump, as he has said today, that naturally the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well. Naturally, we are prepared to work on that. I would like to hope that the agreement that we've reached together will help us bring closer that goal and will pave the path towards peace in Ukraine. We expect that Kiev and European capitals will perceive that constructively and that they won't throw a wrench in the works. They will not make any attempts to use some backroom dealings to conduct provocations to torpedo the nascent progress. Incidentally, when the new administration came to power, bilateral trade started to grow. It's still very symbolic. Still, we have a growth of 20%. As I've said, we have a lot of dimensions for joint work. It is clear that U.S. and Russian investment and business cooperation has tremendous potential. Russia and the U.S. can offer each other so much in trade, digital, high-tech, and in space exploration. We see that Arctic cooperation is also very possible. And our international context, for example, between the Far East of Russia and the West Coast of the U.S. Overall, it's very important for our countries to turn the page, to go back to cooperation. It is symbolic that not far away from here, at the border between Russia and the U.S., there is a so-called international date line. I think you can step over, literally, from yesterday into tomorrow. And I hope that we'll succeed in that. In political sphere. I would like to thank President Trump for our joint work, for the well-wishing and trustworthy tone of our conversation. It's important that both sides are result-oriented, and we see that the President of the U.S. has a very clear idea of what he would like to achieve. He sincerely cares about the prosperity of his nation. Still, he understands that Russia has its own national interests. I expect that today's agreements will be the starting point, not only for the solution of the Ukrainian issue, but also will help us bring back business-like and pragmatic relations between Russia and the U.S. And in the end, I would like to add one more thing. I'd like to remind you that in 2022, during the last contact with the previous administration, I tried to convince my previous American colleague that the situation should not be
после наступления, которые могут наступить тяжелые последствия в виде
no return when it would come to hostilities. And I said it quite directly back then that it's a big mistake.
Сегодня мы слышим, когда президент Трамп
Today, when President Trump saying that if he was the president back then, there will be no war. And I'm quite sure that it would indeed be so. I can confirm that. I think that overall, me and President Trump have built a very good business-like and trustworthy contact. And I have every reason to believe that moving down this path, we can come, and the sooner the better, to the end of the conflict in Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. That was very profound, and I will say that I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on, most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway. So there's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO in a little while. I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate. And I'll, of course, call up President Zelensky and tell him about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them. They're going to have to agree with what Marco and Steve and some of the great people from the Trump administration who've come here, Scott and John Ratcliffe. Thank you very much. But we have some of our really great leaders. They've been doing a phenomenal job. We also have some tremendous Russian business representatives here. And I think, everybody wants to deal with us. We've become the hottest country anywhere in the world in a very short period of time. And we look forward to that. We look forward to dealing. We're going to try and get this over with. We really made some great progress today. I've always had a fantastic relationship with President Putin, with Vladimir. We had many tough meetings, good meetings. We were interfered with by the Russia hoax. That made it a little bit tougher to deal with, but he understood it. I think he's probably seen things like that during the course of his career. He's seen it all, but we had to put up with the Russia hoax. He knew it was a hoax, and I knew it was a hoax, but what was done was very criminal. But it made it harder for us to deal as a country in terms of the business and all of the things that we'd like to have dealt with. But we'll have a good chance when this is over. So just to put it very quickly, I'm going to start making a few phone calls and tell them what happened. But we had an extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire team, who I know in many cases, other than that, whose faces I get to see all the time in the newspapers. You're almost as famous as the boss, but especially this one right over here. But we had some good meetings over the years, right? Good, productive meetings over the years, and we hope to have that in the future. But let's do the most productive one right now. We're going to stop really 5, 6, 7,000, thousands of people a week from being killed, and President Putin wants to see that as much as I do. So, again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I could see it possibly happening. Thank you very much, Vladimir. And thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let's get up there.